That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, everyone, two things real quick before we get into the video. One, please let me know what kind of video you want to see next. I want to remind everyone, we are only going to be covering Dynasty Fantasy Football, so please don't be recommending anything such as start sit, such as waiver. No, that's not going to be here. I want to talk about roster construction. I want to talk about long-term player outlook. And also, guys, please, I want to remind everybody, this is a Dynasty Fantasy Football channel. I'm not going to be covering any redraft fantasy football. So if you do not play in a Dynasty or a Keeper League, or you're not intrigued in getting into a Dynasty Fantasy Football League, please do not subscribe to this channel. Turn off this video. It is not for you. This is just for Dynasty Fantasy Football players. Okay, well, that's it. Now let's jump right into it, and let's talk about 5 deep stashes at the wide receiver position for our fantasy football rosters. And I'm going to do this in terms of talking about the most shallow players, the guys that I think you're only going to be keeping as stashes in a 20-man league. And then we're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into it. That way we can cover everything in between. So our first wide receiver that we are going to be talking about is Bryan Edwards. Okay, guys, very similar to Keyshawn Vaughn in the last video. Y'all know that Bryan Edwards is not a wide receiver that I was drafting in 2020. I honestly thought that he was severely overvalued for where most Dynasty Fantasy Football analysts had him. But now we are looking at this wide receiver going into 2021. Obviously, he's going to be falling down a ton of rankings for everyone across Dynasty Fantasy Football. Personally, though, I don't know if he should be. I think that what is going to happen this offseason is we are going to see all of these rookie wide receivers that did not hit in year one get a major knock on their profile, just because we've seen in the past 2 seasons now that these rookies have been coming into the NFL right away, and they've been making major impacts for their offenses day one. I mean, you look at a DK Metcalf, you look at an AJ Brown, you look at a CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, Justin Jefferson. I mean, these rookie wide receivers are breaking out all over the place. But if we just take a step back and we look at what's happened historically in the NFL at the wide receiver position, we know that this has been a spot where players have to develop. They have to have some time to be able to learn the game plan. They have to be able to have some time to develop their routes at the NFL level, really, if they want to make an impact for their respective offenses. And here with Bryan Edwards, the reason that I did not necessarily like him coming into the NFL, while he had great advanced analytics in terms of his breakout age and his market share numbers at South Carolina, what we did not see is we did not see the ability to run the entire route tree. He was running a ton of wide receiver screens at South Carolina, not necessarily showing us the ability to be able to be that complete wide receiver. So this is someone that I wanted to avoid in rookie drafts this past offseason. I wanted to target him cheaply in trade going into 2021. So now I think that's exactly what we are going to be doing. We have to remember also that with Bryan Edwards, this is a wide receiver that was suffering an injury at the very beginning of the season. So really that is going to stunt his development. So please do not completely give up on him. I know that you probably gave up a significant piece to get him initially, whether that's during your rookie draft or trading him before the season started. Now, please hold on to your roster, and if you do not already have him, maybe this is a player that you can go out there and send some cheap offers for. Okay. So now let's get to our next wide receiver, and this is going to be a KJ Hamler. Here with KJ Hamler, the Denver Broncos looked at a talent that had an elite athletic profile, one of the fastest wide receivers in the 2020 NFL Draft, and they decided that he was worth a second-round selection, a significant team investment, and on top of that, we know that with KJ Hamler, this is a wide receiver that was drafted at 20 years old. I mean, he did not turn 21 until this past July, so he truly has a crazy profile. If you look at the team investment that's into him, and on top of that, you look at how young that he is, and knowing that he is one of the fastest wide receivers in the entire NFL, this is someone that may not have a polished game right now, but he has a ton of upside if we can see a quarterback coming to Denver that is going to provide him above average quarterback play. That if we can also see something happen in terms of wide receivers ahead of him, maybe we see a Courtland Sutton come in here, take out Tim Patrick. Maybe we see Jerry Jeudy a little bit more in the slot, where KJ Hamler is that field stretching wide receiver, but he's going to be able to occasionally pull down that very long ball. It's going to be able to occasionally pop up for your Dynasty fantasy football team. And I will say we are going to be stashing him mainly for 2022, not this upcoming season, because we know that in his third year in his NFL career, he will be a 22-year-old wide receiver going into 23. And on top of that, we know that there's a chance that we will not have Courtland Sutton in this offense, given the team investment into Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. Maybe they have the quarterback situation figured out by then. Maybe KJ Hamler will have been able to develop his route tree to match that athletic profile, and he really could be a wide receiver that's a difference maker at the NFL level. Now, let's get to our next wide receiver, someone that I am going to admit I am very biased with, Devin Duvernay. Okay, so far in 2020, in his rookie season, Devin has not necessarily been able to do anything for this Baltimore Ravens offense outside of special teams. But what we do know with Devin Duvernay is he's playing in a situation where we know that he profiles to be a very athletic slot wide receiver. And on top of that, we are seeing Willie Snead most likely leaving this Baltimore Ravens offense in the future. And if you look around at the Baltimore Ravens skill positional players, they currently have Hollywood Brown stretching the field. They have Miles Boykin as that large wide receiver to play on the outside, across from Hollywood Brown. But what they are going to be missing without Willie Snead is they are going to be missing that slot option. And this is where Devin Duvernay is going to slide in. This is why he was a third-round draft pick by the Baltimore Ravens in 2020. So in 2021, honestly, I think he's going to be stepping up into a very nice role on this offense. I think that we could see Lamar Jackson develop as a passer where he's never going to be a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, a Russell Wilson. That is not in the range of outcomes, but he could be one of the best rushing quarterbacks of all time. And on the same time, if he's just an average passer of the ball, we know that's going to unlock this offense to a completely another level. And if Devin Duvernay is an every down player here, I think that it's a no-brainer using that bench spot to roster him going into the future. Okay, so now let's get to our next wide receiver, someone coming off of a very strong performance, and this is going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones. Now, with Donovan Peoples-Jones, the storyline here is raw talent. I mean, this is a wide receiver that was the #1 athlete coming out of high school way back in 2017. He decides to go to Michigan, where he really did nothing. Yes, he had some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL, but there were a lot of reports coming out about his work ethic. I mean, apparently, he just thought he was the man on campus, really did not put in that work to elevate his game into that next level. And we know that natural athleticism, natural ability is only going to get you so far. So he looked like an average player at Michigan, nothing popping off the page. Then he goes to the NFL Combine, puts up a ridiculous athletic profile, and he has fantastic size, gets drafted on day 3 by the Cleveland Browns to a situation where it looked like he was not really going to be able to step in and see targets right away. But since then, we have Odell Beckham Jr. out for the year. Since then, it looks like Jarvis Landry is honestly much less efficient than we have ever seen him be before in his NFL career. So it looks like that we could be seeing major changes happen at the wide receiver position for the Cleveland Browns. This is an offense that is finally clicking. We know that Donovan Peoples-Jones has all the raw talent in the world. He just needs to develop. He just needs to decide to put it together, and he could be that elite athlete. I'm comparing him to a very similar player that we saw a few years ago in Dorial Green-Beckham, where that did not work out. I think possibly we can see it with Donovan Peoples-Jones. Okay, so now let's get to our last wide receiver, someone that I really did not draft at all in rookie drafts. But I think if we look at the situation in Los Angeles, we have to acknowledge the fact that he is currently a value. This is going to be Van Jefferson. Okay, with Van Jefferson here, I understand he is playing behind both Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, but this is a wide receiver that was selected in the 2nd round of the 2020 NFL Draft. And if you look at the contract situation in Los Angeles right now for both Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, honestly, I'm just going to come out here and I'm going to say that Robert Woods will not be on the Los Angeles Rams in 2022. I think this upcoming season will be his last season as a Ram, because we know that the Los Angeles Rams are in one of the worst cap scenarios of the entire NFL. I mean, they really went all in after that Super Bowl season where they thought that they were going to be contenders and they wanted to risk every future asset that they had to stay at the very top. So they gave a ton of bloated contracts to their star players. And with Robert Woods, if you look at that contract, he's being paid as one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. And on top of that, he has no dead money at all after 2021. So that contract was structured where they could get out of him then. And given the team investment into Van Jefferson, given the fact that he is going to be on that rookie contract for the next 4 seasons, I think that we just have to understand that the team plan right now from the Rams front office is most likely going to be to ride out both Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods the next few seasons, and then cut Robert Woods after 2021 to make way for Van Jefferson to step up into that offense. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, go down there, drop that like, leave that comment, subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps us out. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. I hope I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow.